Hey everyone, I'm Julius Solaris, and today I'm here joined by the unbelievable, amazing, unique, fantastic, inspirational Dan Berger. Welcome, Don. Thank you for being with me.
You're welcome. You seem to not be able to just leave the video and media space, no matter what you do. I love it.
No, I can't. And to be honest, this is fantastic because I can really talk unfiltered without any agenda, any marketing plot or whatever, or even editorial plot. I'm just talking to people that I love, and you're obviously at the top of the list. If you haven't been in the event industry in the past 15 years, Don has been at the forefront of the event tech revolution. Before event tech was a thing that we are experiencing now with virtual events, Don was not only able to do that with the best diagramming software out there, Social Tables, but also was the protagonist of one of the most sensational exits to Cvent, where he then became part of the company and eventually left to become a philanthropist, go back to be an entrepreneur at large, investing in new, incredible, meaningful projects. I want to get your opinion on two things. What is happening right now in the event industry? No question, this is the most important time for event technology, virtual events that we've ever seen. And second, what does the future look like? What are you seeing right now in the industry? What do you like? What you don't like?
I think, to answer the question of what's happening now, I think it's just the first time we have to actually think about in a hyper-local way. Some places that if they shut down again, they will face a complete meltdown of their citizenry. And other places are being pressured to follow CDC guidelines and so forth. I'm going to start with some obvious things. Events are happening. Events are being booked in the future. All you have to do is look at some of the futures market of the industry, which is kind of like future RFPs. Occupancy is back to pre-pandemic times in hotels, albeit not so much thanks to group, but thanks to leisure travel. And, that's an overtaken business travel as well. Pretty much every event that I know has either gone virtual or has a virtual component, which is funny because organizations that didn't even know what virtual means or what hybrid means suddenly are in the thrust of it. And people are realizing that actually starts having a hybrid event and thus having virtual attendees is actually their future attendees if they do things right. Because if I give you a really good experience, not just in person, but also online, then you're likely to come to the event next time it happens. We might be in a situation where if there's a really good marketer out there listening and they do a bang up job on their hybrid event and the virtual attendees are having a blast. And by the way, this is a good excuse for raising your budgets, right? Then you can expect your attendance to double or triple over the next 2 or 3 years.
In the small break that we had pre-Delta, when we thought everything was back to normal, I've kept an eye on a lot of events reopening and rehappening in person here in Vegas. And to be honest, I was surprised to see that very few of them, a small percentage, actually implementing any hybrids. It was like, we can't even bother. Do you feel we're almost like facing a generational type of divide in which some events, we take it for granted and they say, listen, this is the way to go forward. And some others are going to stuck to what pre-pandemic used to look like and prioritize in person? Or is there more to this conversation?
I don't think it's a generational thing. In fact, I think it's like most things, it's the newer and younger generations that pull the older generations into what needs to be done. I would argue it's probably more categorical. Fundraisers realize they need to have a virtual component in order to raise money, raise awareness.
Wrapping up on the present, I want to ask you, because you're, in my eyes, you're event tech royalty. What is your take on the business of event tech? What is your take on what is happening right now? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Are we in a bubble? What is happening?
I think tech is in a prolonged multi-year bubble. But apart from us being in a bubble, a rising tide lifts all boats. Social Tables sold for reportedly roughly 6x ARR. That's what the media said. I can't verify if that's
true. Of course.
I would imagine that today we would have probably gotten 10x, 12x if we stuck around. And by the way, for anybody listening, and even for myself and for you, I have no regrets over what I did. It's really up to marketing teams, growth teams, sales teams to really grow very rapidly in a way that the valuation expects them to grow. I do think that this is probably the first time in as long as I can remember where event tech is actually a serious category. And it's because of Hopin mostly, and Bizzabo probably, and Cvent, for coming back to the conversation with the recent SPAC announcement, that it is getting the attention it deserves as a real category. And there's really no reason why it shouldn't be a category, because events are the most universal things people do. Meetings are the most universal things people do. If you count one-on-ones and coffee meetings and all that, there are almost 30 million meetings in the United States a day. And that's pre-pandemic, obviously.
Now, probably to the most anticipated part of this chat. Not that what we just discussed wasn't as interesting, but your crystal ball is the one I trust the most. What do you see next year like? What do you see the next 5 years like?
I think a lot of events have been able to happen despite the virus. And I think that looking at those events is probably a good place to start. Requiring negative testing or a vaccine. And I don't understand why antibody count is not acceptable, because it means people had it. But anyway, looking at those things and using technology to verify identities. Clear is obviously doing this with some sporting events. Creating this kind of like health passport is going to become the norm. The other thing that is created by a digital health passport is creating a world of haves and have-nots. And that concerns me, because sometimes the people who need something are the people who can't get it. I'm concerned that a digital health passport will create an even greater gap between the haves and have-nots in terms of experiences, in terms of knowledge sharing, in terms of networking. So we have to just take that into consideration. And the beautiful thing about hybrid events is that a virtual component affords that kind of personal choice. Moving on to the kind of longer term, virtual is the new normal with live being optional. So in other words, it kind of flipped, right? It used to be live and then virtual and hybrid, right? When you have both of them, hybrid. It was kind of like a cherry on top to have a virtual experience that integrate. And it was even better. It was like a ice cream sundae to have a hybrid event, because it wasn't just live stream. You actually were able to interact and all that stuff. So I would say now it's flipped. It's virtual first and live is the cherry on top. And that's really good for events, because it allows for us to move towards faster prototyping of events. It's very easy to put milestones on this stuff. And what I think will happen is, because every marketer essentially has become an event planner, as a result of going virtual or going hybrid, we're just going to have more events.
To wrap it up, I'm an avid reader of your Twitter feed, and you recently announced your next venture in the hotel category. Can you share more about that?
I decided that my next venture is going to be starting a boutique hotel chain. I am struck by the fact that the hotel industry is dominated by really 5 major players, much like the airline industry. And I think there's a thirst for a hotel that brings in learnings from different categories, like hostels, like festivals, and really creates a year-round experience for the guests.
Dan Berger, it's been a pleasure to have you on my video series. As usual, so inspirational. Keep being part of the events industry. Your voice is so important to a lot of new people coming in. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thanks, Julius. I really enjoyed it.